Howdy, folks. This is Richard Ricky Garcia, and as part of our effort for the Sky Riders Making a Difference campaign, I thought it would be fun to reminisce, record, and share stories from our drum corps days. I am joined here by one of my favorite drum corps people that I marched with. This is Kevin Hopkins, a soloist for the 1982 Corps, and who also marched 79 and 80 as well. One of the things that I remember about my days in the Sky Riders, I came from a very good high school band in Texas, and even as a freshman, I was one of the best musicians there. And so when I arrived in Skyriders, I naturally assumed that I would be very good there until until I arrived and saw that everyone there was either just as good as I was, if not better. And in most cases, they were better than I was. So it was an eye-opening experience. Kevin has something a similar experience. Tell us a little bit about that, Kevin.
So I had graduated from high school just that May, and Alan and I had decided to come up and audition for the Skywriters.
This is 79, right?
79. And I had been first chair trumpet in my corps style high school band for 3 years. There was a senior there when I was a freshman. He got to be first chair because he was a senior, but I was better than him. And regional bands and state bands and whatever I tried out for, I was among the top three, and most often the first chair trumpet player in whatever it was. The all-state band, I was third chair, but I was just as good as the two guys above me. And so I was accustomed to being the hot stuff wherever I went. And my attitude was, let's go up and help these hayseeds from Hutchinson, Kansas to get a little better. And I was very confident. Well, you knew me then. I was confident anyway, but I was very confident that my skills would shine in drum corps. So we got up, and before I heard anybody else, we had our audition. Simpson pulled me aside, handed me a G bugle, an old chromy, Deg Dynasty bugle, and a Bach 3C mouthpiece, which I consider to be a cookie cutter. And he's like, okay, let me hear you play. I'm like, this mouthpiece? He's like, yeah, I want to hear your tone more than any of your tricks. I want to hear how good you sound. Okay. So I played scales and, some exercises from my trumpet lessons. And he's like, yeah, you're in. Handed me first soprano parts. I'm like, of course I get first soprano parts. I'm good. And like I said in another video, we went straight to sectionals. And I didn't know what order the seats were in. I didn't know where first chair was to take my seat. And so I'm kind of hanging out to see where everybody sits. And this scrawny little blonde-haired kid with really long hair comes in and sits in what is now obviously the first soprano first chair. And then another guy next to him, and another guy next to him, and another guy next to him. And I'm like, I better sit down. So I went and sat down next to Steve Johnson, who's sitting in the fourth chair. And I'm like, do they try out for chairs? Steve laughs and says, no, we don't have to do that here. It will become very obvious to you why we sit in this order. And so we fire up the opener and we're playing. And I'm sight reading. I haven't seen it before. The Hutch kids have gotten it from John Simpson during the school year, and they've had time to work on it. And Roger Ludy starts playing, and I'm like, holy crap. So we get to a break, and he's talking to the mid-range. I'm like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 14. I'm like, good gosh. And there's the Golick kid, there's Steve Johnson, there's Tom Wright, all of them better than me. And so for the first time in my life, I have to come to grips with the fact that I'm not the best one here. I'm not even close to the best one here. We go from there out to marching, and they've all marched their whole lives. They know exactly what they're doing. And Alan and I are trying to catch up. Haas Hoyer, bless his heart, he's like, you guys have done this before. I said, no. Our high school band is corps style, but it's not like this. He's like, no, you're going to catch on to this. You're going to be okay. You got some work to do, but you're consistent. You're steady. You're going to be fine. if it hadn't been for Haas that afternoon, I think I would have felt hopeless. I just wasn't that good. And so, again, one of those moments that says, this is a new league. This is something that takes what you've never had to give before. And it did always from that moment on.
Yeah, something similar. I remember Roger Luty. I marched with him in '81, and I said, I thought to myself, I'm playing with professionals, and if they're not getting paid, they're at that level. But they had
Yeah.
some serious talent, and you know, other people that I marched, a lot of the people that I marched with in '81, they were music majors, and I just finished my
Yes.
freshman year in high school, and
Yes.
and I'm like, you know, and they're, you know, they're performance majors and education majors. It was eye-opening. It was incredibly humbling.
Brenda Phillips. Brenda called them the music gods.
Yeah.
She's like, you guys were like the music gods.
And I can see that for someone, you know, who's just starting out and they don't know the level of talent that's there.
Yeah.
It's intimidating. That's really the right word. It
Yeah.
really is. And I'm glad to hear that you were intimidated too, because
I was,
a lot of people, well, a lot of people, you're a soloist, you're on the PBS broadcast. So a lot of people did see you. They did look up to you. So,
yeah, 3 years later.
but I'm glad to hear that you too were intimidated at one point.
Well, Roger Luty, the funny thing, you remember 82 clearly.
Mhm.
Um, I played a solo that had an impossible, it was 16 bars in the second octave above the scale, above the staff. And it was just a long time to play that high. And in the end, it went to a double G. Um, and I could very seldom ever hit it, almost never. And I'd hit an E, it was in the chord, but constantly Simpson was after me. You got to work out, you got to practice more, you got to get that G. And we were back in Hutch during our break between tours. And I wimped out, hit the E, slid down. Simpson's like, Hopkins, damn it, I want you to hit that G. I'm like, John, this solo wears you out. He's like, I don't want excuses. I want to hear the G. Luty is standing on the sidelines watching us. And again, the instruction kind of goes away from us. And he walks up to me and he's like, dude, don't take it personally. I could never hit a clean G either. Then he was a music god that day.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.